Alright, so the filling amount timer controls actually the cycle that it passes through. So you have to set the amount of time. You always have to have this on the letter H. This has to be set at 0.1 S. And you basically have to have it set at a time that gives the unit enough movement to make its full stroke, which I will show you after the components are removed. You'll be able to see that. But you can't have too much time that it overrides the stroke. So after we start to take the machine apart, I will show you how that works in conjunction with the rest of the controls. So to disassemble the machine from cleaning, you first withdraw the piston out of the cylinder. When it gets to the top of its travel, just engage the locking mechanism. Slide the filling cylinder out of the machine. Take the special wrench that comes with the machine and remove these 4 flathead Allen screws. So you got a special wrench that comes with it, Emilio. Aren't you lucky? Alright, take out these 4. Once they're loosened, as a general rule, they're loose enough that you can spin them with the shaft of the wrench like this. This one's going to have to give me a hard time. It's also a good idea to disconnect the air before the disassembly. Okay, forgot to do that. Always disconnect the air from the unit before the disassembly. That way there's no pressure on these screws. Good thinking, huh? Okay, so disconnect the air first, and then remove all 4 screws that hold the hopper support plate. The hopper support plate, you tip up and it comes out of the machine. And for the purpose of you understanding the operation of the machine, I'm going to put this back in without the hopper support plate so you can see how the machine actually functions as far as the cycle I was talking about. And so I'll just put these in here temporarily without the hopper support plate so you can see what I'm talking about, the different adjustments. And then we'll continue with the disassembly of the machine. I think 1 tight is good enough. All right, so I'm connecting the air back up again. The air connects up right here. All right, to control the amount of filling, it's controlled several ways. First of all, you have the filling adjustment knob that controls the amount of filling that's actually deposited. If you loosen the lock nut and turn this in a counterclockwise direction, again, without the air, you can turn this, increases the stroke of the piston, which increases the amount of the filling. The amount of filling is controlled by where the piston actually stops. So the piston always goes to the same position, and then it comes back to get, and it takes more filling. So basically, the position of this stop controls the amount of filling. And once you set it, you lock the locking nut. Okay, so in starting the machine, I'll put the air back on again. If you look at the timer and you listen to the sound of the stroke, the timer is exactly matched to the stroke. Now I'm going to slow the time down. Any time below the amount of the time the stroke takes will work. Any time above the amount, and this depends on the speed that the conveyor is running. If the conveyor is running, the conveyor right now is running at 100%. So at 100%, 8/10 of a second is about what the stroke takes. Okay, so we'll bump it up now from 7 to 8. Right now, it's still not overriding the stroke. As soon as I go to 9, and what if I let's go to 19. So it's actually cycling before the stroke finishes. So basically, you want to keep it at more or less the same time that the stroke takes. Which 7 would be fine. Wow. Oh, that's 97. Now, you don't want to have it too slow. If I make the time too slow, which I'll bring you down to 3, particular amount of filling, it would actually work on 2 or maybe even 1. Okay, so it works on 2 or 1. However, if I lengthen if I lengthen the stroke, I'll lengthen it to the point where it's not going to work. Notice, right over here, you'll see now that it's being controlled by the timer. The time displayed in the timer is not enough for it to catch the reversing switch. I'm now going to bump it up to 2 cents of a second, and now it catches the reversing switch. So it's very important to make sure that the time displayed in the timer gives you enough time to catch the reversing switch. Too much or too little? If I make the stroke even bigger, it'll take a lot less time. I'll have to increase the timer even farther. Okay, just one more time. I'll go back to 1. It's making it. It's just barely making it. If the stroke is any longer, that'll be a long stroke that will bypass the 1. All right, now, there's 2 other adjustments that can be made. One controls how fast the piston goes in, so how fast it pushes it out of the nozzle. That's controlled by this little knob right here. Now, if you watch the piston, you don't have to focus on the nozzle. Watch the piston. I'm going to turn this nozzle in, and you're going to see the piston go in a lot slower than it's going in now. Notice how it's going in slower? Okay, now I have it closed, so the piston's hardly not even advancing at all. If I open this little valve a little bit, it'll start to go faster. Now this adjustment right here also has a bearing on the amount of time it takes to get to the reversing switch. If I open it up, so the piston is going faster, it'll get to the reversing switch in time. And I'm not changing the time in the timer. Now it can get to the reversing switch on time, and this is how fast the piston is going to push it out. If I close this down, then it goes slower, and it'll get to a point where it won't be able to reach the reversing switch in time. Just there. All right, this is it. That's it. Now it can't reach the reversing switch. It's basically not even moving. Okay, so this little knob controls the movement of the piston, the speed that the piston moves at. And it also has a little locking knob, so if you set it and you like the way it is, you leave it there. That controls the length of the deposit. Obviously, if this thing goes in slower, the deposit stretches out. If it goes in faster, it's deposited more quickly, and it's more localized. Okay, now, the second little knob right here. This one right here. This one is very important. This one controls the withdrawal of the intake of the filling, and the piston is going back. It intakes the filling. So you don't want it to come back too fast. You want it to come back as slow as you can get it to come back and stay within the cycle. Okay, so that's not quite in the cycle. It didn't reach it. Okay, that's just enough. Okay, so now it's coming back very slow, and it'll draw the filling very, very slowly and not pull any air in. But again, if you start messing around, if you start adjusting this one to adjust the actual speed of the piston retracting or taking the filling in, you might have to adjust the time in the timer to get it to go through its complete cycle. So all 3 of these things, all these 4 things work together. now that I've shown you all the 4 different controls, one more time, you got the timer that actually shows you the amount of the cycle that actually it's the signal that the cam gives to the unit, and it has to be within the cycle that it's got. So right now, a 1/10 of a second signal is enough to get it going and to carry it right through the full cycle. The cycle can be controlled by the adjustment knob, which controls the amount of the filling where the piston stops on the way back out. It'll go all the way in, and then it'll come back to a stop point. So this controls the amount of filling that's deposited. This controls really the speed at which it's deposited. Okay, this controls the speed at which the filling is drawn into the cylinder, into the piston. And this controls the speed at which it's forced out of the cylinder or piston into the onto the conveyor. Okay, one more time. You've got the time that the cycle is. This is the amount of the filling back and forth. This controls the amount of the speed that the filling is withdrawn in, or the intake of the filling, which also has a little locking knob. And this one controls the amount of the speed that the piston actually goes in and ejects the filling. Okay, so to continue taking it apart, you take off those 4 bolts, which I just put back in temporarily so you could actually see the operation, which is not possible when the system is fully assembled. Take off these 4 bolts, drop one on the floor, pick that up. Okay, you loosen this knob, you remove this knob completely onto the valve. This is the valve. Okay, move this completely. Let this drop down. This has a shoulder on one side and no shoulder on the other side. This shoulder must face the cam. If you put it without the shoulder facing the cam, the body of this will start hitting. Actually, you're just going to bend the piston. You're going to see it doesn't want to go that way. The shoulder must face the cam. The shoulder is press fit into here so it can't fall out and you can't lose it. So when you're reassembling it, you slide it up, put it into the, tighten it up. So let it drop all the way down. You can even swivel it horizontally. The entire unit can be, you have a choice to take the piston, the valve out now, but you would just swing this down into this position, and you would take the valve and just slide it right out. This is the valve. So this is the intake port, and this is the exhaust port. The filling is drawn from the hopper down through here, and the piston sucks it down into the actual cylinder here, and then the valve flips, and then it pushes it into this hole, and it comes out this hole, and that's how the filling is deposited. Okay, so once this is taken out, then you can take the whole entire block assembly. It could just be slid off the piston. These 2 things, you can remove the insert, the nozzle insert, which you're familiar with. I'm just going to put these here, and I'm going to take the piston off. Hopefully, before I ship this, I'll have a better way of holding this. So remove the pin and nut that holds the piston in place, and take off the piston. Okay, everything that remains here can be wiped all clean, and the piston gets washed, the valve gets washed, the hopper plate support gets washed, and of course the valve, the piston and valve body also gets washed. Now, of the machine. If you don't understand anything, feel free to call me when you're down there demoing it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a thing to plug it into the computer?